The observation deck of humanity's pride fell silent as Lieutenant Rebecca Harlow pressed her palm against the cold viewport. Beyond the reinforced glass, stars stretched into infinity, but something was wrong. The distant constellations flickered like dying embers, and her instincts screamed danger. "Commander Garrison, you need to see this." Her voice barely rose above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of dread. Commander Thomas Garrison was a weathered man in his 50s, with scars that told stories of battles fought in the early colonial wars. He moved with deliberate calm across the bridge of the Titan's Fury, Earth's most formidable warship. His crew respected him not for his rank, but for the quiet strength he embodied. Behind him stood his second officer, Lieutenant David Park, a tactical genius whose youthful appearance belied his strategic mind. Garrison studied the holographic display that materialized before them. Red signatures bloomed across the star map, like blood spreading through water. Each dot represented a vessel, and there were hundreds of them. How long had they been there? Garrison asked, his jaw tightening. The automated probes detected them 6 hours ago. They've been accelerating toward the inner system. At current speed, they'll reach Jupiter's orbit in 72 hours. In the war room deep beneath Geneva, Premier Elena Volkov stood before the Global Defense Assembly. The chamber was carved from solid rock, built during humanity's paranoid years, following the resource wars. Now, as holographic projections filled the space above the council table, that paranoia seemed justified. "We've tried every communication protocol," said Dr. Hassan Okafor, head of the Xenolinguistics Institute. His dark eyes reflected the alien ships on the display. "They ignore our transmissions, not jamming them, just ignoring them, as if we're beneath notice." "That tells us something," Volkov replied. She was a woman who had clawed her way from the ruins of Moscow after the nuclear exchanges, and fear was a language she no longer spoke. "They see us as inconsequential." General Patricia Weaver slammed her fist on the table. "Then they're in for a rude awakening. The Titan's Fury alone carries enough firepower to crack a moon. We don't know their capabilities," cautioned Ambassador Chinwei, the oldest member present. "Aggression without understanding is suicide." The screen suddenly erupted with static, then cleared to reveal something that made the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. The being that appeared was tall and angular, with skin like polished obsidian and eyes that burned with violet fire. Its face was beautiful and terrible, symmetrical in ways that human minds found unsettling. "Primitives of the soul system." The being spoke, and its voice resonated in frequencies that made teeth ache. "I am Archon Vextera, Herald of the Dominion Eternal. Your sun is one of 10,000 under our domain. Your worlds will serve our purpose. This is not negotiation. This is notification." Volkov stepped forward. "We are humanity, and we bow to no one. Leave our system, or face consequences you cannot imagine." The Archon's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in those alien eyes. "Your defiance is noted and irrelevant. In 48 hours, your military assets will be neutralized. Your populations will be cataloged. Resistance ends in ash." The transmission died. Silence gripped the room until Weaver spoke. "We need every ship armed and ready. Every defense platform online. Every last weapon we've got. And we need the Leviathan protocols activated." Volkov said quietly. The room erupted. The Leviathan protocols were mythology, a project so classified that most thought it was propaganda designed to intimidate rival nations during the old wars. "The Leviathan is real?" Ambassador Chen's voice trembled. President Vasquez walked to the window overlooking the Geneva skyline. Above the buildings, she could see the dark shapes hanging in the sky like predatory birds. All across Earth, people were looking up at those same shapes, feeling the same primal fear that their ancestors had felt when lightning split the sky or earthquakes shook the ground. "Madam President," Colonel Blackwood's voice came through the speakers. "We're receiving reports from our deep space monitoring arrays. The alien fleet is being reinforced. 200 additional ships just arrived through another spatial rift." Vasquez didn't turn from the window. "How many does that bring the total to?" "4,318 vessels, ma'am. And they're still coming." General Wu stood beside the president. We need to make a decision. If we're going to mount any kind of defense, we need to start coordinating now. Every minute we wait, they get stronger. Mount a defense with what? Wright asked. You just said we couldn't win. I said we could win conventionally, Wu corrected. But humanity didn't become the dominant species on this planet by fighting fair. We won by being stubborn, creative, and absolutely refusing to accept that anything was impossible. President Vasquez finally turned back to face her advisors. Her eyes held something that made even the hardened general take notice. It wasn't hope exactly. It was something more dangerous than hope. It was determination. Get me a secure line to the Black Armada initiative, she said quietly. The room went absolutely silent. Ambassador Wright's face went pale. Madam President, that project was classified at the highest levels. Most people in this room don't even have clearance to know it exists. Then it's time they learned, Vasquez replied. Because if Overlord Kryn thinks humanity survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and our own worst impulses by learning how to surrender gracefully, he's about to receive the most violent education in galactic history. Colonel Blackwood's voice returned, more urgent now. Madam President, the alien fleet is broadcasting again. Put it through. Overlord Kryn's voice filled the chamber once more. We detect military communications on your planet intensifying. Do not waste your final hours in futile preparation. Accept the inevitable. Comply and live. Resist, and join the 17,000 species who learned this lesson before you. President Vasquez walked to the communication console and pressed the transmission button herself. Overlord Kryn, she said, her voice carrying across space to the massive fleet hanging above Earth. You've conquered 17,000 worlds. That's impressive. But there's something you should understand about humanity before you add us to your collection. She paused, letting the silence stretch. We're world number 17,001, and we keep records too. The silence that followed President Vasquez's words stretched across the void of space like a held breath. In the command chamber, every eye was fixed on the holographic display, watching the alien fleet for any reaction. The ships hung motionless, their dark hulls reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. Then Overlord Kryn's voice returned, and this time there was no amusement in it. Your defiance is noted. It will be remembered for the brief moments before your civilization ends. Perhaps we will preserve recordings of your final transmissions as educational material for other primitive species. The connection severed with a harsh burst of static. General Wu immediately began issuing orders through a neural link, her eyes glazing slightly as she coordinated with military commanders across the globe. Ambassador Wright sat heavily in his chair, looking like a man watching his entire life's work crumble. But President Vasquez remained standing, her posture straight, her expression calm. She touched the control on her wrist, activating a communication channel that existed on no official registry. This is Vasquez. Authorization code Phoenix Black Serpent 9. Initiate awakening protocol. The response came not in words, but in a simple acknowledgement tone. Somewhere deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, in a facility that appeared on no maps and consumed enough power to run a small country, something that had been sleeping began to wake. Sophie Reeves was still at her station in the Orbital Defense Network when her screen flickered and died. For 3 seconds, every system she had access to went completely dark. Then they came back online, but something was different. New telemetry feeds appeared, showing sensor data from sources she didn't recognize. Coordinates for orbital positions that weren't in any database she'd ever seen. Control, she said hesitantly. I'm seeing ghost signals. Multiple contacts emerging from Earth's shadow side. But that's impossible. We don't have anything stationed there. Colonel Blackwood's response was careful, measured. Station 7. Maintain your current monitoring protocols. Disregard the additional contacts. They are classified assets being deployed under emergency authorization. Sophie's training told her to follow orders, but her curiosity was stronger. She routed the ghost signals through her secondary display, the one she used for personal analysis. What she saw made her heart race. Ships, human ships, emerging from positions where nothing should have been able to hide. They were smaller than the alien vessels, but moved with a fluid grace that made Earth's conventional spacecraft look like stumbling children. Their hulls were black, darker than space itself, and they seemed to shimmer as if not quite real. In Geneva, Dr. Tanaka had pulled up the same data on her tablet. Her hands trembled as she cross-referenced the energy signatures. "Madam President," she whispered, "these readings are showing dark matter manipulation. The same technology the alien fleet uses. How is this possible?" President Vasquez's expression remained neutral. 20 years ago, a probe we sent to study a distant asteroid belt encountered something. Not aliens, but wreckage. The remains of a ship from a species that had clearly achieved interstellar travel. The technology was thousands of years beyond our current capabilities. General Wu continued the explanation, her voice low. Every major nation agreed to pool resources for a single classified project. We reverse engineered what we could. It took 2 decades, the combined efforts of the brightest minds on Earth, and funding that officially doesn't exist. We built 47 ships using the alien technology as a foundation. 47 ships against over 4,000? Ambassador Wright shook his head. That's still suicide. Perhaps, President Vasquez agreed. But those 47 ships have something the alien fleet doesn't expect. They have humanity's 3 greatest weapons: desperation, ingenuity, and absolute refusal to accept fate. Above Earth, Overlord Kryn stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Pride. His 4 eyes tracked the holographic display, showing the primitive planet below. The countdown to the deadline ticked away, and he expected at any moment to receive the human surrender. They always surrendered eventually. Overlord, his tactical officer, a spindly creature named Voss, gestured to a secondary screen. "We're detecting energy fluctuations. The humans are moving spacecraft into defensive positions." Kryn made a sound that might have been a laugh in his species. "Let them arrange their toys. It will make the bombardment more efficient if their forces are concentrated. Sir, the energy signatures don't match known human spacecraft. These readings are unusual." For the first time, Kryn felt something other than bored certainty. He magnified the display, focusing on the space around Earth's dark side. What he saw made his primary heart skip a beat. Ships were emerging from stealth positions. Black vessels that his sensors had somehow missed. Ships that moved using technology that looked disturbingly familiar. The energy signatures matched Dominion propulsion systems, but that was impossible. The humans were barely capable of chemical rockets. "Full scan," Kryn ordered, his voice sharp. "I want complete analysis of those vessels immediately." The bridge crew worked frantically. Data streamed across displays faster than Kryn could process. Then Voss turned to him, his expression showing emotion that Kryn had never seen in his tactical officer before. Fear. "Overlord, those ships are using dark matter drives. Their weapon signatures suggest plasma lance technology. The hull composition includes quantum-locked armor. These specifications match Dominion warships from 3,000 years ago." "Impossible," Kryn repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. "The humans don't have that technology. We've monitored their civilization. They're primitives." "Perhaps," Voss said carefully, "we were monitoring what they wanted us to see." Aboard the lead Black Armada vessel, the Nightfall, Captain Dmitry Volkov sat in the command chair and watched his crew work with practiced efficiency. Unlike traditional military vessels, the Nightfall's bridge was small, intimate. Every station was occupied by someone who had trained for 20 years for this exact moment. "Weapon status," Volkov said calmly. His voice carried the slight accent of his Moscow upbringing, but his English was precise. "Plasma lance arrays charged to 70%, replied Lieutenant Amaro Okonkwo from the weapons station. "Quantum torpedoes loaded and ready. Pulse cannons online. Navigation position? We're in formation with the rest of the Armada," answered Ensign Ravi Patel. "All 47 ships are maintaining stealth protocols. The enemy fleet hasn't locked targeting solutions on us yet. Engineering." Chief Engineer Maria Santos looked up from her displays. "Dark matter reactor is running at optimal efficiency. We can maintain combat operations for 72 hours before needing to recharge." Shield generators are fully operational. Volkov nodded, then opened a channel to the other Black Armada captains. Their faces appeared on his screen, a collection of humanity's finest military minds. Captain Jean-Lee Park from Seoul, Captain Hassan Al-Rahman from Cairo, Captain Rebecca Stone from London, 46 other commanders, each hand-picked, each ready to die for their planet. This is it, Volkov said simply. No speeches, no dramatic declarations. We all knew this day might come. We trained for it. We sacrificed for it. Now we execute. Captain Park's voice came through, steady and sure. My grandmother survived the occupation of her country in the old wars. She told me that freedom isn't free and surrender isn't peace. Today, we honor every human who ever refused a bow. The other captains murmured agreement. Volkov felt a swell of pride for these men and women. They weren't glory seekers or warmongers. They were parents, siblings, children. They were artists and scientists who had put aside their dreams to become warriors. They represented every continent, every culture, every language spoken on Earth. Armada, this is Nightfall Actual, Volkov announced. Break stealth in 10 seconds. Target priority is enemy capital ships. Make every shot count. For Earth. For Earth, 46 voices echoed back. Sophie Reeves watched her displays in disbelief as the ghost contacts suddenly blazed into full visibility. The black ships dropped their stealth systems simultaneously, appearing throughout the space around Earth like dark stars igniting. And then they moved. The Black Armada ships accelerated with impossible speed, their dark matter drives pushing them to velocities that should have torn conventional spacecraft apart. They swept toward the alien fleet in a coordinated attack pattern that was beautiful in its precision. The first volley of plasma lances struck 3 of the alien capital ships simultaneously. The beams of superheated matter carved through shields that were supposed to be impenetrable, scoring deep wounds in hulls that were supposed to be indestructible. Quantum torpedoes followed, exotic weapons that phased through normal matter to detonate inside enemy vessels. Overlord Krynn's flagship shuddered as nearby explosions sent shockwaves through space. His bridge erupted in chaos as officers shouted reports and damage assessments. Shields down to 60% on the port side. Capital ships Vengeance and Eternal Glory are reporting critical damage. The human vessels are outmaneuvering our interceptors. Krynn gripped his command throne, his mind racing. This wasn't possible. The humans were supposed to be helpless. They were supposed to surrender. They weren't supposed to have technology that matched his own fleet. Return fire, he roared. All ships, engage the human vessels. Show them the true power of the celestial dominion. The alien fleet erupted with answering fire. Thousands of weapon systems opened up simultaneously, filling space with deadly energy. The Black Armada ships twisted and dodged, their human pilots pushing the limits of what their vessels could endure. President Vasquez watched the battle unfold on the holographic displays, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Ships on both sides were taking damage. The Black Armada was holding its own, but they were vastly outnumbered. General Wu spoke quietly beside her. Madam President, even with our advanced ships, the mathematics aren't in our favor. We're fighting brilliantly, but there are simply too many of them. I know, Vasquez replied, but we're not trying to win this battle. We're sending a message. What message? The president's eyes reflected the light of distant explosions. That humanity doesn't surrender. That will make them pay for every inch of our world. That conquering Earth won't be a footnote in their archives. It will be a scar they carry forever. The battle raged across the darkness of space, like a storm of fire and light. Captain Volkov's hands moved across his controls with the practiced precision of a concert pianist, guiding the Nightfall through a deadly dance between enemy fire and friendly ships. Around him, his crew worked in synchronized silence, each person a vital note in a symphony of survival. Directed on enemy cruiser, Amara called out from weapons. Their shields are collapsing. Don't celebrate yet, Volkov replied, his eyes tracking 3 more alien vessels moving to intercept. Ravi, evasive pattern Delta. Maria, I need more power to forward shields. The nightfall rolled sharply, narrowly avoiding a plasma burst that would have vaporized the entire bridge. Through the viewport, Volkov could see other Black Armada ships engaged in their own desperate struggles. The Damascus, captained by Hassan Araman, was locked in close combat with 2 enemy destroyers. The Soul's Pride, under Jean Lee Park's command, streaked past trailing smoke from a damaged engine pod, but still firing its weapons with deadly accuracy. They were fighting magnificently. They were also dying. Captain, Chief Sandos's voice was tight with controlled emotion. I'm reading critical damage to the Vancouver. Captain Martinez is requesting emergency support. Volkov's jaw clenched. The Vancouver had been one of the first Black Armada ships completed. He had shared drinks with Captain Isabella Martinez just 3 days ago, laughing about old times and making promises to meet again when this was over. Now her ship was breaking apart, and there was nothing he could do. Tell her to evacuate her crew to escape pods, he said quietly. We'll cover their withdrawal. On Earth, in a small apartment in Mumbai, a woman named Priya Sharma held her daughter close and watched the news broadcast. The reporters were trying to maintain professional composure, but their voices cracked as they described the battle happening above. Every nation had stopped what they were doing. Factories shut down. Schools emptied. The entire world watched together as their defenders fought in the void. Mama, are the bad ships going to hurt us? Her daughter asked, her small voice muffled against Priya's shoulder. Priya thought about lying, about offering empty comfort, but she had always believed in honoring her daughter with truth. I don't know, sweetheart, but there are good people up there fighting very hard to keep us safe. They're being brave so we can be safe. Are they scared? I think they're terrified. But being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. Across the globe, similar conversations were happening in millions of homes. Parents explaining to children what courage meant. Elderly grandparents remembering their own wars and praying this generation would survive theirs. Strangers holding hands in city squares, connected by shared fear and shared hope. In Geneva, Dr. Tanaka had abandoned her calculations and was simply watching the battlefield with tears streaming down her face. She recognized the mathematical elegance in the Black Armada's tactics, the way they used momentum and positioning to offset their numerical disadvantage. But she also saw the cold reality of attrition. For every alien ship destroyed, Earth lost precious defenders it could not replace. We're losing. Ambassador Wright said what everyone was thinking. God help us, we're actually losing. President Vasquez's voice cut to the despair like a blade. We're teaching them what it costs to attack Earth. Look at their formation. They're pulling back their capital ships. They're being cautious. An hour ago, Overlord Kryn thought this would be easy. Now, he knows different. General Wu was coordinating with ground forces, her expression grim but determined. Madam President, if the Black Armada falls, we have conventional forces ready to engage. It won't be pretty, and the casualties will be catastrophic, but we can make them bleed for every city, every town, every street. It won't come to that, Vasquez said, though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Aboard the Dominion's Pride, Overlord Kryn's 4 eyes were fixed on the tactical display with an intensity that made his bridge crew nervous. The humans were fighting with a ferocity he had never encountered. Their ships, though fewer, were matching his fleet's technology and exceeding it in maneuverability. More disturbing was their complete willingness to sacrifice themselves. He had just watched a human vessel, already crippled and burning, deliberately ram one of his heavy cruisers. The explosion had destroyed both ships completely. The human captain had chosen mutual destruction over retreat. Status report, Kryn demanded. Voss manipulated the display, his appendages moving with jerky, stress motions. We have destroyed 18 of the human vessels. However, we have lost 43 ships ourselves, including 7 capital class. Current projections show that eliminating the remaining human force will cost us another 60 to 80 vessels. Unacceptable, Kryn hissed. These primitives were supposed to be helpless. Sir, perhaps we should consider withdrawing and requesting reinforcements from the core worlds. Withdraw. Kryn's voice rose to a roar that made every crew member flinch. The celestial dominion does not withdraw from primitives. We are the conquerors of 17,000 worlds. We do not flee from a species that still uses chemical propulsion. But even as he spoke, Kryn felt something unfamiliar gnawing at his certainty. In 300 years of service, he had seen species surrender after seeing his fleet. He had seen species fight for a few hours before accepting defeat. He had never seen a species fight like the humans were fighting, with absolute conviction that death was preferable to submission. Captain Rebecca Stone's voice crackled over the Black Armada command channel. Tight with pain. This is the Manchester. We've taken critical hits to our reactor core. We're initiating emergency protocols. Volkov's heart sank. The Manchester had been a fortress, one of the most heavily armored ships in the fleet. Rebecca, status on evacuation? Negative, nightfall. Our escape pods were destroyed in the first volley, but we still have weapon systems and one hell of a lot of forward momentum. There was a pause, and when Stone spoke again, her voice carried the weight of final decisions. It's been an honor serving with you all. Give them hell for me. The Manchester's engines flared to maximum thrust, pushing the dying ship directly toward the Dominion's pride. Kryn's crew scrambled to bring weapons to bear, but the distance was too close, the angle too sharp. The human ship slammed into the flagship's starboard side with the force of a small asteroid. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. When the light faded, Kryn's flagship was still intact but listing badly, trailing debris and atmosphere. The Manchester was simply gone, along with Captain Stone and her entire crew of 217 souls. On Earth, the news broadcast showed the sacrifice in real time. Reporters wept openly. In London, people poured into the streets despite the danger, holding candles for Captain Stone and her crew. They sang old songs about defiance and freedom, their voices rising together in collective grief and pride. Priya's daughter looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "Mama, why did those people crash their ship?" "Because sometimes," Priya said softly, "the only way to protect the people you love is to make sure the ones trying to hurt them understand the price." Those brave souls wanted the bad ships to know that humans don't give up, that we protect each other, that we're worth more than anyone who would try to make us less. Around the world, in cities and villages, in penthouses and basements, humanity watched their defenders make impossible choices. They saw young men and women from every nation, every background, united in a single purpose. The Black Armada wasn't just a military force. It was a promise made real, a declaration that Earth's children would not go quietly into subjugation. President Vasquez's secure channel lit up with an incoming transmission. It was Overlord Kryn, and for the first time, his voice carried something other than arrogant certainty. "President Vasquez," he began, and there was a careful quality to his words. "Your species has proven more resilient than anticipated. Perhaps we were premature in our approach. The Celestial Dominion is prepared to offer revised terms." "Revised terms?" Vasquez's eyebrows rose. "You mean you're not going to conquer us in 4 minutes?" "Your resistance has been noted. We are willing to establish a treaty. You may maintain your independence in exchange for resource sharing and technological tribute." General Wulin close to whisper. He's stalling, buying time to regroup his forces. "I know," Vasquez whispered back. Then louder to Kryn, "Here are our terms, Overlord. You leave. You take your fleet, your arrogance, and your 17,000 conquered worlds, and you leave Earth space. You never come back. You tell every other empire out there that humans are not for conquering. Impossible. We cannot simply withdraw. The Dominion has never retreated from a primitive species. Then I guess you could lose a lot more ships. Because we have 40 billion more people down here ready to die before we surrender. We'll fill the void with our bodies, if we have to. We'll make conquering Earth so expensive, so bloody, so costly that even if you win, you'll be broken. Is one planet worth that?" The silence stretched long enough that Vasquez wondered if the connection had been severed. Then Kryn spoke again, his voice heavy with something that might have been respect. "You are a strange species. Most civilizations value survival above all else. You seem to value freedom more than life itself. Freedom is life," Vasquez replied simply. Without it, we're just existing. And humans didn't claw our way to the top of our world's food chain just to exist. We live, Overlord. We live free or we don't live at all. Captain Volkov watched his displays as the alien fleet began to shift formation. They were pulling back, regrouping. The Black Armada had been reduced to 29 operational ships. They were battered, bleeding, running on emergency power and sheer determination. Captain, Amara said quietly, if they come at us again with their full force, we won't last 10 minutes. I know, Volkov replied, but we'll make it a glorious 10 minutes. Then something unexpected happened. The alien fleet didn't attack. Instead, they held position, weapons powered down, waiting. And in that moment of suspended violence, every human who was watching felt something shift. The universe had taken notice. Earth had spoken, and the galaxy was listening.